He expected rejection. What he received was love. He stood outside the building for nearly 10 minutes before gathering the courage to step in. Not because the door was locked, not because anyone had stopped him, but because life had already taught him what usually came next. Rejection. Daniel adjusted the worn jacket on his shoulders, the sleeves slightly too short, the fabric thin from years of use. He took a breath, steady but heavy, and finally pushed the door open. Warm air rushed out to meet him. Laughter, soft music, conversations overlapping. Inside, people were dressed neatly, confidently, people who belonged. Daniel immediately felt the familiar tightening in his chest. He lowered his gaze and walked carefully, as if making himself smaller might make him invisible. He expected the looks first, then the whispers, then the polite discomfort. That was how it usually went. Daniel hadn't always been this man. Years ago, he had a job, a family, a future that felt solid. But life doesn't fall apart all at once. It crumbles quietly. A business failure, a medical bill, a marriage that couldn't survive the strain. And then, one day, you realize you've been surviving instead of living. Tonight, he hadn't come for sympathy. He had come because he was tired of being alone. As he took a seat near the back, he noticed the glances. Quick, careful, curious. He braced himself, heart pounding. Here it comes, he thought. But then something unexpected happened. A woman walked up to him. She didn't hesitate, didn't look uncomfortable, didn't lower her voice. She smiled. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Anna. I'm really glad you're here." Daniel blinked, unsure he had heard her correctly. I don't want to be a problem," he said quickly. "I can move if—" "You're not a problem," she interrupted softly. "You're a person." Those words hit him harder than any insult ever had. Anna sat beside him. Not across the room, not at a distance, beside him. She asked his name and listened, truly listened as he spoke. When he stumbled over his words, she didn't rush him. When he fell silent, she didn't fill the space. Others began to notice. A man offered him coffee. Another pulled up a chair. Someone asked if he'd eaten. And just like that, the room changed. Daniel felt it in the way people looked at him. Not with pity, not with judgment, but with something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. As the evening went on, stories were shared. Laughter echoed. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel forgot to keep his guard up. He forgot to expect rejection. At the end of the night, as people began to leave, Anna handed him a small card. "It's my number," she said, "if you ever need someone to talk to or just sit quietly with." Daniel stared at the card, his hands trembling. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't even know me." She smiled again, this time with something deeper behind it. "Because someone once did it for me when I least deserved it," she said. "Love is meant to be passed on." Daniel walked out into the night, holding that card like it was something sacred. For the first time in years, the world didn't feel so cold. Weeks later, Daniel would find steady work through someone he met that night. Months later, he'd move into a small apartment. And one day, he would stand at that same door, not hesitant, not afraid, welcoming someone else who expected rejection. And giving them love instead. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one moment of kindness from someone who chooses to see you. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for simple story that warm the heart.